News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. The Cleveland City School Board of Education met this morning at 7:30 to discuss the replacement for Martin Ringstaff, the former director. They chose Kathy Goodman, who's now the interim director. She was formerly second in command in the school system. The interim appointee cannot be made a permanent replacement, so a new director will have to be found. The motion to appoint her was passed unanimously with very little discussion. The 16-year-old boy who was shot in the head in East Ridge on Friday has died. Monserrate Ferrer died at Erlanger Hospital following the incident. Another 15-year-old juvenile boy was at the scene of the shooting. He was arrested for aggravated assault based on an initial investigation. The suspect was taken to the juvenile detention unit for processing. Gene Wegg and Pamela McNabb have both been charged with arson by the Chattanooga Fire Department after they say they broke into the Brainerd Trophy Shop and set fire to it after stealing a company van and several other items of value. Other charges are pending. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
Expect breezy and colder weather out there through the nighttime lows into the mid and upper 20s with a few flurries or scattered snow showers, especially late. For Tuesday, though, flurries and scattered snow showers likely. Some light accumulation, high temperatures only near freezing with more cold but drier weather later Wednesday. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center in Dalton, named by CareChex as the #1 hospital for cardiac care in the Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga region. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today, giving me just a little bit of your time. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. As always, before we get the ball rolling, we got to talk about the platforms. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Twitter, and you can find us on YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We are the first thing that comes up. And of course, for those of you who are no longer in your cars and would like to listen to us, make sure to check us out on the TuneIn Radio app. It's free in the Apple Store and Google Play Store for your mobile device. Search Hot News Talk Radio, give us a follow, press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. And of course, you can find us on hotnewstalkradio.com. So, that's that. Super Bowl 50 was yesterday here on Hot News Talk Radio. We were the home of the Super Bowl in Chattanooga. And as always, promised you to have a breakdown of the game. And I had a very strict breakdown. I was going to break down the game strictly, which I understand is boring. But I like that. I'm a nerd. Leave me alone. I like to nerd out about numbers and stats. So I'll sneak them in here. But as always, Cam Newton stole my thunder. Cam Newton steals everybody's thunder everywhere he goes. You knew that Cam Newton was going to be some kind of story if he won, and he was going to be some kind of story if he lost. And you know what? Panthers end up losing to the Broncos 24-10 in Super Bowl 50, and Cam Newton's a story. Like immediately. And everyone is jumping on Cam. And I'm like, do I have to defend the indefensible here? Defending Cam Newton lately feels like defending some kind of mass murderer, the way that people jump on him for the stuff that he does, which compared to mass murder is harmless, just harmless. Like it's ridiculous. It really is. And here's the thing that really weirds me out, because, and I understand, you talk about Cam Newton a lot, but also talk about Kobe Bryant a lot. You talk about polarizing figures a lot. I have no choice. My hands are tied on this one, folks. But this story has been circling around all day, and I've been hearing people attack Cam Newton from every angle. If you listen to The Herd with Colin Cowherd here on Hot News Talk Radio, Colin was going after him a lot. You're just looking at maturity. You're talking about maturity. Is Cam Newton ever going to grow up? All of these things, that he acted like a baby. You hear all of these things, and I want to get into that a little bit later in the show. I also want to talk about, obviously, Peyton Manning and his legacy, and how it is that despite the fact that Peyton Manning was really not that great in that game, we're still talking about Peyton Manning and Peyton Manning's legacy. So that's the Super Bowl 50 gave me a ton of things to talk about. But before we do that, I want to start doing something on the show. Just give you a few news items, which most of these are Super Bowl items in fairness, but there's some sports items from around the sporting world. LaShawn McCoy, Sunday morning, Buffalo Bills running back LaShawn McCoy got into a bar fight with two off-duty police officers, and he was thrown out of the bar and is certainly in deep trouble for that. Other news story, Derek Fisher, head coach or former head coach of the New York Knicks, fired. The Knicks have not come out and said that they fired him, but it is being reported that he has been fired and that Kurt Rambis will fill in his role as interim head coach. Interesting facts about the Super Bowl. This is the first Super Bowl in 22 years without a passing touchdown, that blows my mind because, I've seen some bad Super Bowls, you would think, but no, this is the first one in 22 years without a passing touchdown. And of course, Peyton Manning's stat. Peyton Manning is 89-0 when his team allows 17 points or fewer, which I told you before the Super Bowl. I said it. Peyton Manning just has to be a game manager. He just has to not turn the ball over. And he did a great job of getting out of the way. There were passes that he checked into runs. He never made the big mistake. And as a result, he gave the Broncos defense a chance to win that game. That's why I picked the Broncos. I thought that their defense is some of the best. It's the best defense I've seen ever. And I thought that 2014 Seahawks defense at the time that I saw that one, I thought that one was the best that I'd ever seen. Keep in mind, I am 25 years old. I didn't live to see the 85 Bears. I thought the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers were also a great defense, but this Denver defense is the best defense I have ever seen. And as much as we like to talk about offense and fireworks and how the league has changed itself to become a quarterback's league, the only thing more important than a quarterback is a defense that can stop one. And Cam Newton, MVP of the league, played like the best quarterback in the league this season, just got stopped. He just got stopped. And I want to go into breaking down how the Broncos were able to stop Cam Newton. And because that's hugely important. And, it's proved to be a very difficult task, right? Like, you're looking at it. It's a very important thing, stopping Cam Newton, because he was the offense of that team. He was. The running attack was aided by the fact that you have to account for Cam running, and the passing attack came from the fact that you have to account for Cam running. Like, all the openings that they had became as a result of Cam Newton, and instead of talking about how Cam was taken out of the game, how Cam was knocked out of the game, he was beaten up, he was sacked a number of times, he was pressured a number of times, almost at a historic rate, by the way. Instead of talking about that, what I'm talking about is how Cam Newton reacted in the press conference after the game. After the game, Cam Newton, a bristly, grumpy, surly Cam Newton, was not answering questions from the media. He was, but they were one-word, terse answers. And I have so many things to say about this because Cam Newton is all smiles. He's having fun. He's out there dabbing. And that Cam Newton, the Cam Newton that we see when he's winning and he's full of joy and I've heard it described that he has as much joy as a child when he's playing out there, just in terms of just the pure bliss of the game. We're talking about that Cam. I don't know how it is that we saw that Cam Newton and thought this guy is going to be humble in victory. First off, humility is not a word that I would ever use to describe Cam Newton. If you gave me 300 words to describe Cam Newton, it'd be a long time before we got to the word humility. That's not one that we see when we refer to him. And if you see a guy who's cocky and arrogant in victory, what makes you think he is suddenly going to be humble in defeat? Cam Newton was anything but that. And he had bad body language. They asked him questions. He would go, no, yes, no. He nodded for one question, which, of course, all the reporters are there with the recorders. That's not a sound bite. You can't record a nod. And, you know, we have all these problems. And I just want to know why it is that we are jumping on Cam for this. I'm going to defend the indefensible. I'm going to defend the guy that's acting unsportsmanlike. Cam Newton has had bad body language his whole career. Cam Newton is an awful loser. He's a terrible loser. And I don't think that this is news to anybody. Cam Newton, in the course of his whole life, has done a lot of things. He hadn't done a ton of losing, though. That's still not something that he handles particularly well. That's one. Two, here's a guy that plays with a ton of joy, a ton of passion. Okay, when he's happy, he's not hiding it. What made you think that when Cam Newton was sad, you were going to see that hidden as well? That was a critique of him when he came into the league, was that he had bad body language. I have a buddy, he's a Panthers fan, and we were watching Cam in his rookie season, and he was worried. He was telling me, you know, Keon, I don't think that Cam Newton is mature enough to be a quarterback in this league. And I'm not of the one that thinks that maturity is something that you can measure by whether or not a guy dances or a guy's body language. I mean, that's part of it. That is an element, a singular element. But you can't judge an entire guy as a human being based on that aspect of himself. Seems unfair. It seems unseemly. And I just didn't think that that was something you could do. And I said, hey, man, I think Cam's going to be all right. The body language is a little worrisome because you're going to lose games, but I think he's going to be all right. And you know what? Cam ended up being all right, but the body language didn't go anywhere. Okay? And if you want to know why you haven't seen Cam acting like a giant man baby over the course of the regular season, it's because Cam hasn't been doing a lot of losing over the course of the regular season. The Cam Newton, ever since he got into his car accident 1 season ago, has lost a grand total of 2 games. One of them was yesterday. Cam Newton hasn't had to deal with losing in quite some time. It's been a minute for this guy. And even when it was happening often, he wasn't handling it particularly well. Cam Newton has never been good at handling losing. And I don't know what you want. All the same people who were like, go, Cam, go. Cam, celebrate. Cam, go ahead and dab. Can't be the same people that are turning on him when he's sulking in a press conference. He just lost the biggest game of his life, and he reacted as such. That's the dude is being about as human as humanly possible. And we get on athletes all the time. Don't give us boring answers. Don't give us cliches. You want the guy to be themselves, and then when they are who they are, you kill them for it. Okay? I am less offended by what Cam Newton did in that press conference and more offended at the fact that Peyton Manning thought it was cool to push Budweiser on me at the end of a game. Like, what the heck, man? You won the Super Bowl. How are you pushing Budweiser at the game that Peyton Manning is the guy. I've never seen this before in my life. He'll do anything for a few dollars. I mean, Peyton Manning is like the Nicolas Cage of people, except he's actually good. This Nicolas Cage will just be in any movie for a few dollars. Come on, man. You got to say no to something. Like the Super Bowl, winning your 200th game, winning the Super Bowl, possibly retiring and riding off into the sunset. Let that be your last hurrah, dude. You could go out of there with more class than shilling Budweiser at me. Right? And then that awkward hug, kiss with Papa John. What on earth was that? Peyton Manning. Just any advertiser for a few dollars. Go ahead. What else is Peyton Manning? I want Peyton Manning to have just gone onto the field with Buick gloves and a nationwide shoes. That's what I want. That's what I wish happened. We have a caller calling in. Here, caller, you're on the air.
You sound great, Keon. Knowing nothing about sports, watching it once a year, maybe with the Super Bowl, listening to you and Colin Cowherd, I just find it interesting. Listen, and a friend of mine who has a sports network emails me of how much he hates Peyton Manning and hates the other. I can't even think of his name.
Cam?
Yeah. of the Panthers.
Yeah, Cam Newton.
Cam Newton. I heard the name 1,000 times, and I text back. I said, "Listen, these guys are in the Super Bowl. They're at the top of their game. Why are you trashing them?" And he's on this rant about them. I'm like, to me, they're no different than radio people. So I think when we're talking about these guys, plug in radio people or anyone that's reached the top of their field. They are what they are. I mean, Cam Newton is what he is. I mean, he's the best at what he does. He's probably done it since he was a little kid. He works his butt off, and he was just being honest yesterday. He didn't put on the face. And the same thing with Manning. He's like,
yeah, he's a little cocky too.
Buck. You guys are what you are, but he's the quarterback that won the biggest game in the world. So I think it's just that these guys are what they are. And I don't know why anybody wants to put down the best of the best of the best. I'm not saying you do it. You're analyzing it. But why are there haters out there hating these guys? These are the guys we need to praise and teach our kids. Listen, this is what you need to achieve. You need to be like these guys. They don't get to where they are without working constantly on their trade, on their skills. They must work nonstop to get where they've gotten. And that's my comment on it, not knowing anything about football.
Oh, absolutely. But I think you're right. I think you're correct. Because here's the thing. I think they end up with a lot of haters because people don't like that they're successful and, you're rich, you're successful, you're playing a game for a living. And I think that breeds a lot of jealousy. I think it does. But these guys, and especially Cam and especially Peyton, in fact, quarterbacks in general, you have to have a little bit of that swagger to play that position correctly. You cannot just show up. Like, you have to believe.
You have to believe you're God or almost God.
Just you have to believe that when you show up, you're the best guy.
I challenge anyone to walk out into a field in front of 200 million people watching and do anything without just crumbling into a fetal position. That alone.
It's nerve-wracking. And even the best athletes in the world are there. And I believe Michael Irvin had an interview with Colin Cowherd. You can listen to him on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Michael Irvin said he gets nervous every time he goes out there. That anybody that tells you that they aren't nervous in the Super Bowl, they're lying. Even the best of the best.
What, not knowing about football, I bet you they could play next week and the Panthers could win. They're both that good.
Yeah, this is just the problem with having a game that's a small sample size is you lose once and it's all over. The Panthers, that was a close game for much of the game. You had some things happen in that game that don't usually happen. Graham Gano misses a field goal for the Panthers. And Mike Tolbert, who hasn't fumbled in about 4 years, fumbled twice yesterday. I mean, just so much can go wrong or right for either team that ends up with a result that, honestly, nobody's really in control of.
And just quickly on this jealousy thing about earning money, the less you have of anything, the more it's worth. So you can put that into perspective with athletes. Out of billions of people on the face of the earth, there's only a handful of athletes that can make that kind of money because there are so few of them. And they deserve to make as much as they can possibly get. Why shouldn't they?
They're worth that on the market.
That's their level.
Yeah. If someone's willing to pay that to them, that's what they should get.
Remember this, no one is worth more than they get paid, ever. If someone's giving you $10 an hour, that's what you're worth. If you're getting $100 million an hour, that's what you're worth. No one ever pays you more than you're worth. So if someone's making $20 million a year, that's what they're worth. If you could bet that they're making 10 times that, whoever's paying them $20 million is making 10 times what they're paying them. Off their skills.
And you can go with society as a whole and say, you know what, we're society where you've got athletes worth more than teachers, but it's not the athlete's fault. They're not paying themselves. And it's not the teacher's fault either. You know what I mean?
Another subject for another day I want you to bring up is I believe college football players and basketball players should get paid. It's absurd that these universities make all this money.
Yo,
these poor kids are raped and they don't get paid.
That show is coming, my friend. That show is coming soon. It's about to be the NCAA tournament in basketball soon. It's around that time of year I start pounding that drum. So yeah, we'll be there.
They need to get paid. All right, thanks. Great job. Great show.
Yeah, thank you, brother. So here's the thing. He was talking about radio personalities, you do have to have some level of arrogance to do this job. Okay. And I've talked to other radio people in this town. I have talked to them, and what they say is that the radio personalities that they know, there's almost a level of histrionics involved where one day your radio guy's got a good show. He's on top of the world. He's flying high. He's got a bad show, and he doesn't want to come out of bed the next morning. Okay. It's radio hosts, athletes, actors. When you have to do a job, and that job is public, and you have to do it in front of a lot of people, and you have to do it well, and you have to be consistent day in and day out, you have to believe that you're good at it. There can't be any doubt. There can't be any second guessing. And with that comes just a little bit of cockiness. You do. I mean, I feel like I'm right all the time until I'm not. And then you got to backpedal that. And people will let you know it. There's criticism that comes with it. And Cam Newton's going to wear his emotions on his sleeve. When Cam Newton is pure joy, you'll know. When he is dejected, you'll also know. And people in the media criticizing Cam for that is hilarious because we're the same way. Have you seen media guys get defensive on Twitter? I tweet at media people all the time and just troll them. And some guys will just flip out at you. Why? Because they thought that they were right. They have the same arrogance that Cam has. I don't think anybody's got the amount that Cam has. He's got that in spades, but they've got the same thing. Like, we've all got the same gene. Whatever it is that makes you want to stand in front of a microphone and talk to a bunch of people who may or may not agree with your ideas and may criticize you and may tear you down for them, you got to be a little nuts, at least a little bit. You can't back away from it. You can't shy away from it. And the same personality that makes you want to do that, when the chips are down and you're going to show everything, you will show everything. And my God, how many Aaron Rodgerses and Eli Mannings and Ben Roethlisbergers giving us boring answers in press conferences are we going to take before we go, you know what? The alternative of emotional Cam, I like that. I will take that. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
What's going on?
Get a free $20 gas gift card. Free. That's right, a free $20 gas gift card. Just tell Rick at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road you heard the offer on Hot News Talk Radio. A $20 gas gift card for free. When you tell Rick you heard it on Hot News Talk Radio. Buy or sell 30 grams of gold or 10 ounces of silver and get a free $20 gas gift card. It's the Valentine's Day sale at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road. 60, 70, 80% off when you buy rings, pendants, bracelets, and necklaces. Cash, and more cash. When you sell all week, buy, sell, trade at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds on Brainerd Road. Mention you heard this at Hot News Talk Radio and get a free $20 gas gift card. Free. Cash. This huge Valentine's Day sale's going on now. Don't miss it. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds Valentine's Day sale. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade show for your business and you need a very affordable venue. Are you looking for a place for your birthday gala or services to start up a church? Look no further than the Hidden Gem in Hickson. It's an overlooked, newly appointed reception hall right here in Hickson, Tennessee. Big space, small price. That's right, big space, small price. Call Mr. Chu and ask for a tour. 316-7388. That's 423-316-7388. He'll tell you a lot more about the venue. Rent this venue today. Just call 423-316-7388 and ask for Mr. Chu.
Hello, I'm Mike Little, candidate for criminal court judge with 25 years of criminal court experience, which makes me the most qualified candidate. The experience I have gained from handling over 4,000 cases in state and federal court has equipped me with the ability to be fair, impartial, and independent. As your next criminal court judge, I will focus on keeping Hamilton County safe. I view this position as a public service and will strive to improve the daily operation of the court. I humbly ask for your trust and vote in the March 1st Republican primary.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Little. Barry Abbott, Treasurer.
Lay your burdens down at the Woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door.
The perfect gift for the perfect match. Surprise her with a Woodhouse gift card. Call us today at 423-443-4478 or visit us online at chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
Expect breezy and colder weather out there through the nighttime lows into the mid and upper 20s with a few flurries or scattered snow showers, especially late. For Tuesday, though, flurries and scattered snow showers likely. Some light accumulation, high temperatures only near freezing with more cold but drier weather later Wednesday. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center in Dalton, named by CareChex as the #1 hospital for cardiac care in the Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga region. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sports, it's serious business. I don't have a co-host. Not very often. A few times I have been co-hosted here with Russell when we have breaking local news, and especially breaking local news with legal ramifications like the Udoa rape case. And then I bring in Russell because he understands his way around the legalese. I don't understand that path as well. And so to avoid saying things that are untruths on the air, I bring Russell in. I also have my girlfriend in from time to time for our segment Jay Asks, which we have one coming up in a little bit. Not today, but hopefully tomorrow, I think. But we do that because she doesn't know that much about sports, and then she asks questions on behalf of girlfriends or possibly boyfriends, people who don't know much about sports but are interested / are forced to watch them with the people that they love. So she's forced to watch it with me. So she asks questions and I answer them, and hopefully we're all the more merrier and educated as a result. So, I don't often have a co-host, but I heard this clip and it's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Try and get it up for you on the Facebook page, and we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow because I can't believe this happened. But Izzy Gutierrez and Amin Al-Hassan, who are great reporters for ESPN, were co-hosting a show together, and what transpired during that show was basically Amin Al-Hassan getting upset at Izzy Gutierrez and just walking out of the set. He just got mad and left. Now, I've stormed out of a few arguments in my time. If I don't feel like I can reason with you and get through to you, I'll just leave. Because now I'm just getting mad for no reason, right? I just leave. Can't do it. But I've also never been live on the air when that's happened, where my job is to continue talking and making sounds so that there is no dead air, presumably, right? And what we get is Amin Al-Hassan getting up. He's telling Izzy Gutierrez that he's threatening to leave, but he asked the question like a hypothetical, which I love. He said, if you had a coworker who was getting you in trouble and making you seem stupid, something along those lines, would you leave right now? And Izzy's confused a little bit, and he's going, wait, you're not going to leave? And Amin said, try me. Izzy said, I'm trying you. And then Amin Al-Hassan walked off the set. He just bolted. How do you in the media criticize Cam Newton when you've got that going on? And I feel like sports is filled with this. We're just filled with a ton of useless moralizing. I don't want to use another person's word, but like that's what it is, where we take it upon ourselves to decide what the morals of another person ought to be, as though that was our job in the media. Our job in the sports media is to report sports, to break down the games, to analyze the games, and to talk about the things surrounding the people in those games. Whether or not they are a moral person is not sports. Okay, legacy talk, that's sports. Okay, you could build 100 sports shows. Like I could build a year's worth of sports shows around just top 10s of stuff. Top 10 centers in NBA history. Top 10 running backs in Tennessee Volunteers history. Top 5 quarterbacks in Alabama history. Like I could build a year's worth of shows on just top 10s of stuff. That's legacy talk. That's sports. The morals? That's not sports. And even if it is, even if you're the kind of person that believes that that's the case, what gives the media the right to talk about the morality of other people and whether or not Cam Newton's body language was bad when we got Amin Al-Hassan walking out of a show that he is co-hosting with Izzy Gutierrez? I mean, what gives the media the right? And I bet you we won't talk about that story. That's crazy. And then you look at another thing where Terrell Owens this past weekend not voted into the Hall of Fame, and you're looking at Terrell Owens statistically. Terrell Owens deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just based on what he did as a player, that nobody with two functioning eyes saw Terrell Owens play and didn't think he was one of the great receivers of his generation. So the fact that Terrell Owens may have been accused of being a locker room cancer, that he was accused of being a diva, he was accused of being a quarterback killer, all of those things may be true. But a bunch of writers are going to sit there and keep Terrell Owens out of the Hall of Fame. And you know what? I heard a report, I believe from Sports Illustrated, but I don't want to be incorrect on that, but there was a report floating around that he wasn't even in the top 10 of guys voted in. And I understand Tony Dungy is, great coach, deserves to be in there. I would think that Terrell Owens, more so than Tony Dungy, has had a bigger impact on the game, because this idea of the powerful possession receiver that gets you yards after the catch, that's a Terrell Owens development in this league. That's not every team wasn't looking for that before T.O. You were looking for a lot of guys like Jerry Rice and Randy Moss burn you over the top, go over the top and catch a pass that the defense can't touch because the guy catching it was so talented. Terrell Owens could catch a pass in traffic. The defense is capable of swatting that pass away, but Terrell Owens somehow comes down with it and takes off for another 20 yards. That's much more difficult than the pass catch in traffic that he has to then turn into yardage. That was T.O. But because we're not a huge fan of what T.O. did morally, we're going to keep him out of an athletic Hall of Fame for that. Okay? You don't have to be a good person to be in the Hall of Fame. And the media has just got to stop with trying to take people's morals and explain them and describe them. And that's not the sport. Okay? And if you want to talk about the athlete and you want to talk about them in full view and you want to talk about their moral struggles, then yes, you can do that. But you can't say that a guy like Cam Newton is immature, so he doesn't deserve to be the starting quarterback of a team. And you're not sure that if you had to choose a quarterback to start your team, you wouldn't choose Cam Newton because he's immature. First off, what you saw yesterday does not determine whether or not a guy is immature. You look at the antics of a guy like Johnny Manziel, who, again, if you want to talk about a person who's multiple shows worth of a person, Johnny Manziel will give you material for weeks, which is why I don't talk about him on the show, because you would be sick of it if I just went into all the details. I'm sick of talking about Johnny. He's got problems, he's got issues, but that's a guy that's immature, that is sneaking away to Vegas in a mustache and glasses and a wig to pretend to be somebody else so he can party in Vegas without even and then come back. Like, really? He misses the last physical of the year so he can go party in Vegas. Parties in Vegas on the bye week. That stuff is immature. That's a guy that can't lead your team because he's not even available. Okay, Cam Newton got his team to a Super Bowl, so he was doing something right. Okay, I don't care what you say about him. He was doing something correctly. And Cam Newton storms off of the press conference. He storms out of it. And part of the reason there that I believe is the case is that he could hear Broncos defensive backs celebrating and talking about how they stopped Cam Newton through the wall, because the NFL decided to put the two of those press conferences so close together. He put the two press conferences back to back. Cam could hear Chris Harris through the wall, and it's not even a wall. It's just a backdrop that said Super Bowl 50 and had the Panthers logo all over it. Cam could hear this guy on the other side of the wall. I mean, it's unbelievable. Why would you put the losing team and the winning team that close together? So the losing team can hear the winning team celebrating and still have to answer questions? I don't get it. It's just, there's so many factors involved in what makes a person do something like that. And then we just all sit on the sidelines and pick them apart? I mean, come on. What are we doing? So that conversation, I mean, there's so many more layers to it, but you can get to the point where you beat a dead horse. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose, where I am not in the business of beating dead horses. So we'll move along to Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, and what he was able to do to slow down Cam Newton. Basically, he did the thing that Wade Phillips does really well, which is that he blitzed, and he blitzed a lot. He blitzed a lot. Okay, he did something which is called green dog blitzing, where you've got extra guys that you could drop into coverage, but since you have a spy on Cam Newton, and since you know that they're not going to have as many receivers out because they're going to bring in tight ends and running backs, because let's face it, you all saw the Panthers offensive line last night. Wasn't very good. In fact, it was pretty awful. And the badness of that offensive line necessitates that you bring in extra people to help block. And in so doing, Wade Phillips had extra guys. Okay, guys that I could smother them in coverage, but let's just bring extra pressure. Let's not let Cam get comfortable. And he didn't. Cam Newton looked uncomfortable all day long. The Broncos defense beat him up. Von Miller, whoever was playing right tackle for the Panthers, was getting beaten like a drum regularly. And Von Miller was hitting him with spin moves. There was one play where it wasn't even power. Von Miller was just so fast on the outside, he ran by the guy, left him standing there like he was in quicksand, and then circles around and knocks the ball out of Cam Newton's arm. Like, what do you do to stop that? He's so much faster. And then you can't double cover him because DeMarcus Ware on the other side is just popping off. He's also killing Cam. What do you do? Okay, that defense is just smothering. And the sad part about this is that somehow, despite how well the defense played and Von Miller wins the MVP, and we're talking about how great this defense is, we end up talking about Peyton Manning's legacy. We just get suckered into the trap that we know better. We know we can't just sit down for every single day and talk about Peyton Manning and Peyton Manning's legacy, except you can't help it because now he has 2 Super Bowls, and you have to evaluate where that puts him, even though you know he wasn't the reason that the Broncos won the game. And I say that as a fan of Peyton Manning. Not the reason why the Broncos won the game at all. That defense carried them. The defense scored the only touchdown for them. The first touchdown for them, C.J. Anderson eventually scored one, but for much of the game, the defense had carried this team. And I think Peyton Manning just did a really good job of getting out of the way. But it's weird that we have to get to the point in Peyton Manning's career where First off, that shows you how great Peyton Manning is. That we're just going to bend over backwards to give him compliments. I was listening to Jim Nantz in doing the play-by-play last night in the Super Bowl, and we're just bending over backwards to try and find compliments to give to Peyton Manning. He got out of the way and let his defense do its thing and let the running game do its thing. And while that's true, we don't usually give people rewards for getting out of the way. Otherwise, we treat Trent Dilfer a lot better. You know, Brad Johnson won that Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We would treat these guys a lot better, right? We just give them credit for getting out. We don't give them credit for getting out of the way. That's a compliment that you only get if you're Peyton Manning. Okay? The Peyton Manning could go into a game, throw no touchdowns, have a fumble, have an interception, and we compliment him by saying he got out of the way. Now, he did what he needed to do. Peyton Manning didn't need to go out and try and win the game for Denver because I think he would have lost it. He doesn't have the arm strength like he used to. He doesn't have the accuracy like he used to. No reason why Peyton Manning needs to go out there and try and win them the football game. He did do a good job of getting out of the way, but he's the only person on earth that we would gladly give that as a compliment to. Like, he just did a good job of getting out of the way. It's just another way of saying he didn't do anything. He didn't mess up, but he didn't dominate. Okay? And then on the other side of this, we've got Cam Newton, and I'm reading articles on Deadspin about how Cam Newton blew it. Cam Newton didn't play well. And at what point do we not give enough credit to defenses? The defense of the Denver Broncos just made life miserable for Cam. Okay? By the way, they made life miserable for Brady, and they made life miserable for Roethlisberger. They went through a few elite quarterbacks to get here, and they made those guys look soft. Okay? Tom Brady about evaporated. They beat him up so bad. And those offensive lines for the Panthers, for the Patriots, not good. Not good at all. And we're going to blame Cam for losing the game? Seriously? He was the offense. He had no receivers, and he lost another one in that game. He's throwing to Brandon Funches. Funches. We didn't know who he was at the beginning of this season. He's throwing to Brandon Funches. Okay, he's not throwing to elite receivers. I mean, the other guy, Peyton Manning's got Demarius. He's got Emmanuel Sanders. We've got Brandon Funches in Carolina. That's our guy. Okay, and Greg Olsen, to his eternal credit, I mean, he never got open, but he never had the chance. Come on. The stories are ridiculous. And then we're just going to sit around and talk about Peyton's legacy and how great that Peyton is, even though he basically shilled Budweiser at us at the end of that game. And you're just like, why, Peyton? Why? And then he did it twice. He did it on the podium, and then he did it before he got on the podium. And you're just like, well, make a buck wherever you can. Keep getting them checks, I guess. I'm not going to say no to more money. Okay? I've always heard the analogy, and I believe I've heard it from Jalen Rose, that it doesn't matter how rich Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey are. If they find $100 on the ground, they'll stoop down and pick it up. Who wouldn't? Nobody's going to say no to more money. You think that you've just got a lot of money, that you're just done gaining money. No. Mentioning Budweiser, that's free money. Budweiser didn't expressly pay him, but Peyton Manning owns some Budweiser distilleries, so he benefits somehow. He's connected to Budweiser. He's got the mental awareness to see that, and he just went for it. I just want to know why he didn't cover himself in Nationwide and Buick stuff, since he's also those sponsors. Since you're going to awkwardly hug, kiss Papa John, and then also give us Budweiser ads, basically, in the game. You know, it's what you do. It's like those Geico commercials where, you know, the spy is running, and then his mom calls him while he's fighting a bunch of other guys, and he goes, "Mom," and then the announcer goes, "Well, if you're a mom, you call at the worst possible time. It's what you do. You're Peyton Manning, you just advertise. It's what you do. I suppose. Don't know. But we just watched an elite defense go up against an offense that was great, but an offense with a glaring weakness. Okay, the way that you want to beat Cam Newton, let's make him throw the ball. Okay, he's a great passer. He's got 35 touchdowns on the season, so it's not like he can't throw the ball. But here's a stat for you. The Panthers were second in the league in rushing, right? Second in the league in rushing. That is exceptional. They were 24th in the league in passing. So which one do you want them to do? Yeah, I'm going to go with passing too. I think that was the right decision. I think that was beyond the right decision. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you so much for joining me, giving me just a little bit of your time. Before we start to wrap things up, got to talk about the platforms, okay? Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We are the first thing that comes up. We've got 2 Twitters, by the way. We've got our opinions. We've got our hard news. I think that both accounts are very useful. Subscribe to them both. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube down below. Make sure to hit that red subscribe button. I'm appreciative of all the people that give us a listen on here. I really do. And make sure to drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear from you on Facebook as well. You can also follow me personally on Twitter at SportsCloud. Okay? Incidentally enough, the name of my blog. At SportsCloud. Check it out. And you can always listen to us on the TuneIn Radio app in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store for your mobile device. Just search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow. Press play. You'll have Hot News Talk Radio wherever you go. And, of course, hotnewstalkradio.com. So I'm ticked. I'm ticked off about the whole Terrell Owens not being in the Hall of Fame thing. That makes me very upset, because that's garbage. You look at him statistically, you look at the numbers that he's put up over the course of his career, and there's no way you can look at this guy and say he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And you know what? He better get in next year, because that's a shame. Okay, that's a shame. And you see it happen in baseball all the time. And I haven't really seen it happen in the NFL. I don't know what the NFL voting thing is, okay, because it's much more complicated. Baseball is straight up about it. Here's your baseball writers. Here's the amount of guys that can get in this year on this ballot. Go. Football, you've got like 50 people voting. I don't know any of these people. It's a mixture of players and media people. And it's just weird and absurd and cockamamie, and you're not ever going to really understand it. I don't know how many people are allowed to be inducted at any one time. If there is no limit to that, Terrell Owens ought to be in the Hall of Fame this year. Like, there's no good reason. Like, none. And at least in baseball, there's like a limit to the amount of guys that can get inducted all at once. Okay? It's weird. It's so weird. And Terrell Owens has been so good over the course of his career. And I understand the Hall of Fame, they keep wide receivers out. Okay. They tend to do that. Art Monk didn't get in for years and years and years and years, and he should have. And Terrell Owens misses out, even though the guys getting in are Tony Dungy, Brett Favre, Kevin Green, Marvin Harrison, Orlando Pace, Dick Stanfel, Ken Stabler, and Eddie DeBartolo. And these are all great choices for the Hall of Fame. But I'm going to go with, let me pick on Marvin Harrison, because he's a receiver. If I had to choose between having Terrell Owens and Marvin Harrison, I'm going to go with T.O. T.O. was a better receiver than Marvin. He just was. And Marvin's great. And Marvin does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, just not before T.O. gets in the Hall of Fame. What? That's so weird. That is such a bizarre thing to do. And I don't understand how the Hall of Fame committee works at all. But it doesn't matter. Because when a guy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Good People. It's the Hall of Fame. You get in based on the merits of what you've done on the football field, and only on the football field. Not off it, not whether or not you ran your mouth, which, by the way, Terrell Owens never got in trouble with the law. Terrell Owens isn't breaking the law. He's not a bad he's not a bad role model for children. At least not in that regard. You know, he goes out and he works all the time. And I think that a lot of these arrogant athletes are at least a good role model for children because, sure, maybe they're arrogant, but they go out there and they put the time in to be great. I think a lot of young people coming up are looking at the arrogance and just taking the arrogance. You can't be arrogant without talent to back it up. Okay? The time that it takes to study an NFL playbook, the time in the gym that it takes to become great at any sport, basketball, football, what have you, you can't just be arrogant. You've got to have the talent to back it up, which you can only have if you practice and work hard. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You've been listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me. And remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. The Cleveland City School Board of Education met this morning at 7:30 to discuss the replacement for Martin Ringstaff, the former director. They chose Kathy Goodman, who's now the interim director. She was formerly second in command in the school system. The interim appointee cannot be made a permanent replacement, so a new director will have to be found. The motion to appoint her was passed unanimously with very little discussion. The 16-year-old boy who was shot in the head in East Ridge on Friday